I know what it's like to be an audience member. I know what it's like to watch à-bas-le-ciel from afar as a passive viewer. Before I met Zell, I was just a fan. I watched his YouTube videos. I read his blog posts. I read his articles. I remember when I first saw a video from him. I remember after that how voraciously I consumed what content he had online. I was fascinated by his ideas. And I was also interested in his life. I remember the sense of injustice I felt when I learned about how he had been separated from his daughter. I watched his videos about it, and I read his blog post about his divorce and how his ex-wife had prevented him from seeing his daughter. And it was difficult for me to comprehend why she would do that to him. You know, I looked up to Zell. Zell inspired me and thought, Zell did nothing to deserve this. He's a good man. Why is he suffering through this tragedy? Why is she so cruel to him this way? When I learned about Durian Rider and that he had defamed Zell by making up allegations about his sex life, you know, Durian Rider was a fellow vegan YouTuber. Why are you trying to destroy another vegan YouTuber's reputation? Why is this man so crazy? Why is he so stupid? Why is he so evil? Why is he treating Zell this way? You know, Zell doesn't deserve this. If somebody had told me back in late 2016, early 2017, Melissa, just stay out of it. Just stay a passive viewer. Just stay a fan. If you get involved in this man's life, you're going to destroy his life. I wouldn't have believed them. I would have said, what do you mean? I mean, I have a sense of the character of the people who have really damaged him. I'm not crazy or violent or aggressive, dangerous like Durian Rider. I'm not selfish, petty, cruel like his ex-wife. Well, I really didn't know myself, and I didn't know that I would be capable of damaging Zell worse than his ex-wife, Mireille. I didn't know that I would go on to destroy Zell's relationship with his daughter. I didn't know that I would ruin his reputation the way that I have, worse than what Durian Rider did to his reputation. When I met him, you know, I was infatuated with him. I fell in love with him, and I thought it was wonderful. I thought, this man is wonderful. He has so many qualities that I would look for in a partner. You know, not only is he vegan, sober, atheist, you know, he's brilliant. The most brilliant person I've ever met. He's giving. You know, he's generous. He's sweet. He's loving. He's thoughtful. He's encouraging. There were just so many things that I felt really positively about him and about our future. I wasn't a scholar, you know. I wasn't an intellectual, but I was vegan, and I felt that I could be someone with him. I felt that I could be a better person with him. When we got together, it's not unreasonable that Zell expected basically within 5 years that I would get more education, that I would build up my career. And from the very start, we had many conversations about my career and how he could support that and what we could do together. You know, we talked about getting an MPA together, about studying at a university in Canada, about going to law school in Canada together. You know, it was having to do with veganism, policy changes and so on. But ultimately, we decided if we really wanted to make a difference, we could become vegan bakers. And to say that Zell supported that dream would be an understatement, because we went to vegan restaurants, we went to vegan bakeries around the world. We went to vegan restaurants and bakeries in China, in Beijing, China, in Bangkok, Thailand, in Paris, France, in Los Angeles, California. We toured campuses of different culinary schools together, and ultimately we decided to enroll in a culinary school together in Vancouver. And in preparation for that, Zell bought books for us, bought a stand mixer, a dough mixer. In his video recently, Zell is describing some of my negative motivations, some of my evil motivations in the relationships I had with men, aside from my relationship with Zell. We had an open relationship. From the start, we both agreed, look, it's not right, it's an injustice to force somebody into a kind of prison where they can only have sex with one person for the rest of their life. I didn't want it to be the case that he would only have sex with me for the rest of his life, and he didn't want it to be the case that I would only have sex with him the rest of his life. We agreed we wanted to have an open relationship. We agreed that was the right thing for us. That's what we wanted to do. It was totally reasonable for him to expect that during the first 5 years of our relationship, during the ages, for me, 24 to 29, and for him, 38 to 43, that we could have had multiple sexual partners, together and separately, that we could have had positive sex lives, that our sex life would be good and strong, and that outside our primary partnership, that he could have had a secondary partnership, I could have had a secondary partnership, we could have had meaningful relationships, sexual relationships with other people for a period of, let's say, 5 years. And then, yes, simultaneously with me getting my education and career together, at a certain point, we would be ready to settle down and have a baby together. He had good intentions. He had plans for us. And I agreed those were good plans. When we talked about them, I agreed that sounded like a good plan. That's what I wanted. That's what I thought I wanted. And when we would have conversations about our relationship, I would agree with his advice on how I should conduct myself, because even at the start, I was exhibiting some symptoms that would persist and get worse throughout a relationship, where I was cruel toward him. I was wanting to hurt him, to be abusive toward him. He said there's a difference between being in love and being loving towards somebody. Right? Absolutely true. Absolutely good advice that he gave me time and time again. So in this video that Zell uploaded, he's talking about my motivations in these relationships with these other men. And how some of the motivations were quite evil. Yeah, I've had to reflect on this quite a lot in the time since he's uploaded that, and realize I need to be fully honest about some of these motivations. In my relationship with Zell, I was constantly confronted with my own stupidity. And it's not that Zell was cruel to me about my own stupidity. He wanted to help me. But I was always with a man who was more experienced, more well-read, somebody who had been a scholar of Buddhism, somebody who had studied multiple different languages, had taught himself Pali, somebody who had lived in Southeast Asia, learned to speak the Thai language, the Lao language, somebody who had studied First Nations languages in Canada, who had been to First Nations University in Regina, Saskatchewan, and had studied Cree and Ojibwe, and he'd studied French, he'd studied German, he'd studied Chinese, and he'd lived in China, lived in Taiwan. Just, he'd had such an incredible background. And by comparison, I'd studied German in school, but no, I never had any great German proficiency. And that was really it. I didn't study any other languages, and I really, I didn't perform as well as I should have in university. I really regretted how I spent my time in university once I got together with Zell, because I thought, oh, everybody else that I've known before Zell, just slacked off in university, but he was doing more outside of university. He was educating himself. He was a self-directed learner. He was reading Plato on his own. He was going to the library and studying things outside of what his classroom had assigned, outside of what the professor had assigned as assigned reading. I had never thought to do that. I didn't do that myself when I was in university. We had some interests in common, including the interest in First Nations and Native American history and so on. But I did read some books on that subject when I was in university, in part because that was an interest of mine. But no, not to the degree that he had been committed to, trying to preserve First Nations languages in Canada. No, I'd never gotten to that level. And yeah, there were just so many things. I was constantly living with this awareness that, Zell is this intellectual giant, and I am just a nothing. I'm just a nobody. And sadly, I had a really negative attitude toward the entire relationship. I just, I thought that I was improving at certain points by having a more positive attitude about it. As I read more, as I studied Chinese more, I thought that I was improving, but still it would just, pretty often I would just think, what is the point? I'm never going to be as intelligent as Zell. I'm never going to be as smart as him. He's just brilliant from the moment he wakes up in the morning to the moment he goes to sleep at night. And for him, it's effortless, but for me, it's a lot of effort. And, it was moving that in his recent video, when Zell said, I'm capable of being brilliant for 2 hours of the day, and the rest of the time I'm dumbing out. Yeah, I mean that it still has an impact on me. It still means a lot to me to hear that, because I know he's a brilliant person. And to hear him say that I'm capable of brilliance, at least for 2 hours of the day, means a lot. But at the same time, I still don't want to accept it, because, I tend to think, oh, anybody could read the books that I read over the course of 7 years. Anybody could get to the level of Chinese proficiency that I got to, which is limited. Anybody could kind of challenge themselves intellectually this way. But I have had to realize that that's just not true. Sadly, not everybody is capable mentally. A lot of people are mentally limited and don't have the ability to do what I have done. So, yeah, and I was choosing instead, in my cheating relationships, to debase myself, to behave as though I was stupid, to play dumb. I wanted to play dumb because I didn't want to live with the awareness, I am intelligent to know right from wrong. I know what I'm doing is wrong. I know what I'm doing is stupid. I know I could be doing something right now to actually improve my life and improve my relationship with Zell, but instead I'm cheating on Zell. Instead I'm doing this horrible, counterproductive thing, which is, yeah, as he said, it's denigrating to these other men too, because I was lying to them. Zell pointed out that I said something flattering about a tattoo that Leo had, and it's true. I hate tattoos, and I didn't have anything in common with Leo. I'm not a fan of anime. So anything that I said, other than just being honest and saying, look, I think the tattoo shows me, look, we have nothing in common. I don't have any interest in you. That was really the truth. But instead, I wanted to play this mind game. And yeah, unfortunately, it wasn't a mind game. I had ultimate control over. I deluded myself. I was delusional. I got lost in the game, as Britney Spears would say. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so Zell, and my relationship with Zell. Okay, I was not playing stupid. I was trying to be smarter than I actually was. And all the time I was encountering this, that Zell was actually smarter than me. And it just knocked me down every time. I thought I was finally gaining some confidence with reading Aristotle or with reading Thucydides. And when I tried to talk with him about Thucydides, I just realized, wow, my understanding of it is so much poorer than Zell's understanding of it. And when we talk about it, Zell's doing the majority of talking. And I'm just listening, and it's the situation where Zell is always giving. He's always, educating and teaching, and I'm always just absorbing, and not giving back. And I'm always taking and not giving back. And Zell was aware of this, and he was trying to help mitigate by saying, look, you can study something else, and maybe you can teach me something that I've never studied, because he hasn't studied everything in the history of the world, but so when I expressed interest in Xinjiang in China, the Muslim majority, not Muslim majority, but region of China in which there are many Muslim Uyghurs, he encouraged me to study Xinjiang and Central Asia, and he bought books for me. And that was an opportunity for me to actually teach him something, because he didn't know much about that region. He knew very little. That was an opportunity for me to actually step it up and teach him something. And I just didn't do it. Every opportunity that I had to actually improve his life, to make his life better, I didn't. I was really just so selfish, so self-absorbed, just cared about how I felt that day. In my relationship with Zell, what did I care for with his long-term relationship with me, about our future together? What did I do in order to accomplish that goal, the 5-year goal of, look, Melissa's gonna get her education together, her career together, and she's going to have sexual freedom for 5 years, and then after 5 years, we're going to settle down and have a baby. Great plan, but I didn't do any of the steps necessary to actually put that plan into action. Instead, I was just completely consumed by my own emotions and my own interests, short-term desires from day to day. I just wasn't thinking long-term. And I didn't think long-term about the impact I would have on the other people I cheated on Zell with. I didn't think about Oliver's long-term future. I didn't think about Leo's long-term future. I didn't think about Abhishek's long-term future. I wasn't even thinking of Zell's long-term future. I wasn't thinking of how I was destroying him. I was just thinking of myself the whole time. And what was I thinking about in terms of my own self-interest, right? I just wanted to feel a little bit better. I just wanted to prop myself up and feel smarter than I actually was, because I was constantly reminded of how stupid I was in my relationship with Zell. Not because he was mean to me about it, but because it was just obvious. with every conversation that we had that I was not at the intellectual level that he was at. Physically, I could have been pushing myself to get in better shape all those years. It could have been that over time, I developed the ability to do pull-ups, to do push-ups, to do all these different exercises and actually have a good physique to get in the best shape of my life. For Zell, he's a big, tall, muscular man. For him, he can effortlessly do push-ups. But for me, it's just more difficult. And instead of having a positive attitude and thinking, I can do it, I can get better, I can build myself up, I can literally build my body so that I can do this exercise, I had a fatalistic attitude where it's like, what's the point? I can never compete with these other people. I'll never be strong enough. And the same thing happened with the intellect. What's the point of even competing? I'll never be as smart as Zell. Just this fatalistic, defeatist attitude. And that wasn't his attitude. His attitude was, look, once you have the building blocks, once you have the foundation, you can keep building. And eventually, you can work hard and you can have your own proof of genius. You can show that you've become more of an intellectual over time. He had a fundamentally positive attitude about growth, about getting better as a person. Whereas I just didn't see the world that way, and I didn't see our relationship that way. I just thought, I can't compete with Zell. Even in video games. Seriously, it is embarrassing to admit this, but from my earliest memories, I was playing video games. I felt that was something I had trained for practically my entire life. I had been playing video games all my life, and then I got together with Zell, and there were games that he just could beat me right away. Like, I was like, even this? Just in every facet of life, Zell is better than me? What is the point of this, He's just out of my league in every single way. I can't compete. It would be one thing if there were just one thing where I could say, yeah, Zell's smarter than me, Zell's stronger than me, Zell's a better public speaker than me, he's a better author than me, he's better in bed than me, he's just all these things that he's better than me. At least there's one thing. At least, this guy who says that video games are a waste of time, at least I'd be better than him at video games, right? Well, so yeah, that is really how petty I can be. That is really how shallow and stupid I can be. Because Zell is better than me, I wanted to take him down a peg. And that is fundamentally what was driving so much of my bad behavior throughout my relationship with him. I wasn't thinking of what would be best for him, for our long-term future. I was thinking about how I could basically lick my wounds of my ego because I was constantly with a man who was showing me up, showing me how great he could be, how productive he was with YouTube videos. In the time it took me to record 2 YouTube videos, he made 30 YouTube videos. It's just unbelievable how easy for him it was to just create and make YouTube videos, write books. I know that he was reading and researching to write the books that he did, but still, it's just, I can't even write one essay. In the whole relationship, did I write one essay about a book that I read? No. So yeah, of course, I felt pathetic with him constantly, and that was partly what drove me to be so cruel to him. It's not an excuse. There is no excuse to be cruel and abusive towards somebody. And of course, I did feel terrible afterwards. I sometimes wept uncontrollably and wept and begged and said, I'll do better. I'm going to be a better partner to you, I promise. But then the cycle would just continue, and when I was cheating on him, it got worse and worse. because in these relationships with these other guys, I did feel smart. You know, as Zell talks about in that video, like, I wanted to feel smart with these other men who were inferior to Zell and in intellect and every other way, but whatever, intellect specifically. It was sadly ego-affirming and a confidence booster to be talking with these people who were not as intelligent as me. And I deluded myself into thinking that they were more intelligent than me. It's not that I had this objective, you know, kind of controlling the puppeteer kind of mindset about it. No, it was a game that I was engaging in, and even though I was playing dumb, like, I started to believe that, yes, Oliver is smarter than me. Yes, Abhishek is smarter than me. Yes, Leo is smarter than me. These men are better than me. Even Matt, you know, I just thought they were better than me in a variety of ways. And, you know, when Zell is talking about the voice recordings from Oliver and how when Zell listens to them, he thinks that, you know, Oliver has a mental disability. The same thing happened with Matt. You know, like, he once told me that he thought Matt was mentally disabled, and I just thought, what? Like, I've been crushing on a guy, like, that Zell thinks is mentally disabled. Wow, I feel really stupid. You know, I was not an objective party in this. I did have feelings for these people. I had absolutely had feelings for Abhishek, Leo, Oliver, Matt. Like, these were not people that I thought were mentally retarded. But obviously, yes, I should have realized, wow, as a 31-year-old woman, well, I mean, at the time would have been, I don't know, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, like, yeah, I was more intelligent than these people. I had the responsibility of actually being the smarter party. And I knew this from having grown up this way, where if you're in a group with somebody in school trying to complete a project together, inevitably, I would always end up doing more of the work, you know, because the other people who... I am not saying that everybody was dumber than me. That's not what I'm saying. I am just saying that oftentimes, because I was able to do more of the work, it was put onto me, because either they were too lazy, not self-disciplined enough, which I'm not saying I have great self-discipline, but when I was in school, I was able to complete projects, whereas these other students couldn't, or didn't want to. So I knew that if you played dumb, you basically are able to get out of taking responsibility for things. I also learned that in my relationships with family members. You know, if you're a smart aleck, people are going to hate you. If you are a know-it-all, people are gonna not want to spend time with you. They just don't like your attitude, right? They don't like feeling dumb around you. I remember in high school, there was a guy that, whatever, he just made fun of me for how I spoke. He just said, like, why do you use such big words? Like, obviously he was an idiot. I should have just said, why don't you use such big words? Aren't you fluent in only one language? Like, yeah. But I realized in my relationships with my family as well, if you are just playing dumb, then you don't have as much negative interactions with other people. You know, you don't rock the boat. If you are aware that the person that you're speaking to is doing something evil and wrong, it's an effort to have a conflict with them and say to them, look, you know, I know you're going to feel affronted by this, but this is why what you're doing is wrong, and you should know this or that. Well, Zell has made that effort, and he did all these years on YouTube. You know, he was constantly making videos, analyzing other people's mistakes in life, and I just didn't want to follow his advice. I wanted to defy him. I wanted to rebel. I wanted to resent him. and do things my way, even though my way was selfish, stupid, and evil. You know? It's just... Zell was right. His advice was always right to me. And I never took his advice. I always wanted to break the rules. I always wanted to be bad. It's like a child defying authority figures. It's just pathetic. That's how I was in my relationship with him. He never got what he wanted. What he wanted was good. It's a person who had devoted himself to noble pursuits throughout his life. He'd done humanitarian work in Cambodia. Studied First Nations languages. He'd wanted to make a positive difference in the world. And that hadn't been my life up to age 24. From 24 to 31, I've not done anything to make the world a better place. So yeah, look, I'm not trying to be self-pitying. I am just trying to be honest and talk about some of these aspects that were motivating my behavior in my relationship with Zell and in my cheating on him with other people. Just malice, cruelty, wanting to take Zell down a peg because I felt I could never compete with him. I could never... be a fraction as intelligent or self-disciplined as him. But that wasn't Zell's attitude. He always believed in me. He believed in my potential more than I ever believed in my own. I just have to make it clear that Zell had good intentions in his relationship with me. And he never got what he wanted. You know, my sick, twisted dreams came true. I got what I wanted. So stupid what I wanted. I look back in horror and think, wow, I really wanted to cheat on Zell this way. I wanted to cheat on him by doing this just degrading thing with Abhishek and Leo, and I wanted to cheat on him with Oliver, the one person who was actually trying to be Zell's friend, who was trying to do something to help him. Like, just so selfish, so evil. But that is what I wanted. Those were my motivations. And I got what I wanted. So I can't be self-pitying about my life. This is what I wanted. I did it my way. But yeah, Zell has way more right to be self-pitying. Way more right to be weeping on camera. You know, I look at these videos, I look at the series of videos, and yeah, I find myself pathetic. It is pathetic that I've been crying, talking about my pathetic existence. Well, think of how much Zell has to feel sorry that he let me into his life. Of how awful it must be for him knowing that he had good intentions. He worked on our relationship. He tried for so many years. And he never got what he wanted. His dreams never came true. Because of me.